All right, I'd like to welcome all to this evening's regular board meeting of Lakeview Public Schools Board of Education today, Tuesday, October 17th, 2023, 7:30 p.m. at the boardroom at the Wheat Educational Campus. At this moment, I'd like to take a moment here to recognize a well-distinguished teacher who had recently passed away from the high school in the name of Mr. Paul Goyke. He started here in special education, and then he transitioned over into a history teacher at the high school. Social studies teacher at the high school. And with great sadness, he recently passed away, and his funeral was last week, Friday. So I'd like to take a moment of silence for Mr. Goyke. Thank you. Okay, moving on with our agenda, I'd like to call the attention of the board of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 19, 2023.
Move their approval.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Martin, support by Mr. Baird. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Madam Secretary, have we any public communication this evening?
I do not.
Thank you. Moving on to item D, Board of Education and Administration comments. With the passing of Mr. Goyke, I know there's been a lot of sadness within the district from both parents, staff members, and students who had Mr. Goyke and his what he brought to the district as far as many years of talent and teaching our kids. So, he will be greatly missed, and unfortunately, I believe it was cancer that had taken his life. On brighter notes, I guess the football team is rocking and rolling again, or still. Homecoming was a lot of fun, 3 weeks ago coming up now? That was a great day, and a lot of good things going on with the kids in schools, and all the other athletic, soccer and the other teams are in full swing, and we're in middle of October, and all is good. So it's glad to see everybody back in action and performing well and bringing home the win for the kids in the school. Give them something to cheer about coming out of all these crazy years we've had recently. So it's good stuff. Any other comments from other board members?
I saw that the girls won the power football. So another year in a row. That's awesome. I'm sure that was fun and exciting for them. 7 years in a row. Okay.
Not that we're counting.
Not that we're counting. And I saw we had a visitor. Who was that?
So we, at our last football game, home game, we had David Montgomery from the Detroit Lions had reached out, and he lives locally in Grosse Pointe, and he had his girlfriend I didn't realize who it was, but I spoke to her on the phone that they wanted to come to a high school football game. He loves high school football. She said when they were in Chicago, they would go on Friday nights to high school games, and so they wanted to come and watch a game, and she knew that we were both 5-1, and she thought it would be a good game to watch. And I reminded her that, even though she lives in Grosse Pointe, our school colors are Honolulu blue and silver, so make sure. But he was very, very accommodating to all of our kids, and, anybody who wanted a picture or an autograph, he took pictures with them and selfies, and it kind of created a little bit of a buzz, which was nice to see that, we had a local celebrity playing for the Detroit Lions coming to watch a high school football game. And he stood on our sidelines and pushed his 9-month-old in the baby stroller, so he was, a regular guy.
Nice.
Didn't he get injured this weekend?
I'm sorry?
Didn't he get injured this weekend?
He did, yeah.
Not a good look. Could be a curse.
He'll be back.
That's right.
Any other comments from the board? None? Administration?
November 7th, or now, if you have your AV ballot, Lakeview's non-homestead tax levy question is on this election season. It is important We call it renew and refresh. The 18 mills is the maximum we can levy, but you can seek more than that to address future what are called Headley Amendment rollbacks. So we're actually asking for 21 mills and hoping that voters will get informed and, click on our website, look for the postcard that came home recently, look for the newsletter that came home recently to understand more about it. Districts across the state have to do this periodically. It's not a unique thing to Lakeview. It's not a new tax. It's not raising taxes. It's just continuing the levy on business and commercial property. So it does not affect a homeowner and their school taxes.
Primary home.
Right, so rental homes, commercial property, agricultural property, vacant land are a part of the 18 mill levy. More than 40 years, it's been being collected, and there's no, there is a downside. If it doesn't pass, the budget to Lakeview would drop by 2.6 million in revenue. So while it is something that's unusual to have to do every so often, it is our turnaround again to ask that question of our voters, and that is for resident voters in the Lakeview boundary. We have lots of school choice families who can help us if they want to encourage people to vote, but the nature of this is the homeowner resident property, the residents of Lakeview, and again, it does not affect the primary home, so most folks, this does not impact, but they get to vote for it. So make sure you get informed. Feel free to call my office, email, stop in, any of the above, and somebody will be able to help educate if you don't understand it. So I'll offer that as my only comment for tonight.
The last couple of weeks, we had parent-teacher conferences at the middle school level and the high school level. It was really nice to see the turnout both for in-person and virtual conferences. And our elementaries are at the end of this month, so we encourage folks to make sure they make those appointments because we really appreciate partnering with parents to help provide the best possible support for your students. So I want to thank parents and all of those teachers who did a great job with conferences.
Any other comments from administration? No? Okay, anything left from the board? All right, thank you. Moving on with the agenda, student representative report. Ms. Pinter, is it Pinter? Pinter? Great, thank you. I don't want to be wrong moving forward, so thank you.
Okay, so the Early Childhood Center, and look back over is school field trips and fun at the Early Childhood Center. Weeks ago, there are early childhood special education classes left to meals for a tour. Last week, their Great Start Readiness Program and tuition preschool classes went to Upland Hills Farm. Over 400 students, parents, and staff attended this field trip. Next week are their parent-teacher conferences, and of course, the preschoolers are ready for Halloween, and they will be parading along the sidewalk and through the administration side of the building. Moving on to Princeton, Mr. Cave could not be here today because he was attending one of the Princeton music concerts at the high school. On October 6th was their annual fun run, which is their only fundraiser for the year. The fun run raised a total just under $84,000 this year.
That's 8-4? 84,000? My goodness.
Mr. Pig and Mr. Donnelly will be providing the students with some quality entertainment over the next few weeks to pay their debts for the students and families doubling their goal this year. Speaking of the Princeton PTO, they are looking forward to the superintendent coming to their October meeting to have some fireside chats with the community. October 27th is the annual Fall Fun Fest. Moving on to Ardmore. Ardmore will hold its annual Fall Festival this upcoming Friday. There will be craft and game rooms, pumpkin painting, food trucks, trunk or treating, and a haunted hallway. Ardmore is also happy to learn that they qualified for a grant through Mr. Bolon and Central Administration's effort to plant a number of new trees at Ardmore. New trees were carefully selected and will replace trees that have been looking forward to the Harvest Festival at the end of the month, and programs are being put together to be sent out to students for Halloween. Harmon's PTO has trunk or treat happening on Friday this week. Teachers are excited and preparing for conferences next week. Concrete is also being poured in the new additions, and it's nice to see things moving closer to interior work. Next up is the middle school. Jefferson has completed fall NWEA testing and held their first parent-teacher conferences. At Jefferson, we have completed fall NWEA. The annual Veterans Day breakfast will be Friday, November 10th at 8:30 a.m. JMS students and staff are excited to welcome the veterans to the school for breakfast, speakers, choir, and band performances, as well as a parade to conclude the event. And lastly is the high school. Homecoming was a success with over 1,000 students and guests in attendance. Thanks to the support of the teaching staff and parent helpers, we were able to have another great event with students. Seniors were also able to get their parking spots earlier this month. It was a tremendous fundraiser for the students and way to bring the class together. The class of 2024 girls beat Lakeview High School again in the annual Powder Bowl. This is Lakeview's 10th straight win. Congrats, class of 2024, and thank you to all the coaches and senior parent committee for assisting with this great event. And lastly, the senior parent committee will be conducting Tassel Before the Tassel on November 1st. A great way to assemble various vendors in one spot for senior parents. More information
Once again, lots going on.
definitely.
Good news. Thank you for jogging my memory on the bond stuff. It's great to see that Greenwood is moving along very well. It's good to see Harmon is moving along very well compared to the prior two elementary buildings, which was, in my opinion, short of a disaster as far as timing goes and performance goes. Sean, the blue facade around Ardmore and Princeton, some of that's not done yet. Is there any update on that as far as timing?
Yeah, that's all punch list work. We're working on that right now.
Punch list meaning, when can we expect it to see complete?
At the end of the month.
October this month?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any questions for our student rep tonight? Great, thank you very much. Good stuff. Okay, moving on to the agenda. Perfect attendance recognition.
The following personnel are being recognized for perfect attendance during the 22-23 school year. When I call your name, if you're here, if you'd please come forward. Laura Azaparty.
Two things today. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Therese Blondell.
Repeat offender you are.
Congratulations.
Lori Cherry isn't here, and those folks who aren't here, we will make sure we get their congratulations and their tokens of our appreciation afterwards. Chelsea Cleghorn Antonazio, David Cody, Leslie Critchfield, Elizabeth Curd, Craig Vinsky, Katie Kerr. Yes, there's Katie.
Congratulations. Thank you. I guess perfect attendance only counts until 5 p.m. huh?
That's right, that's right. Mark Mullins, I know Mark's here.
Congratulations.
Christopher McAvenny, I didn't see him. Carl Paulson is here.
Another repeat offender.
Brian Peterson. And Brian, actually, I just saw him leaving a few minutes ago. That's how dedicated he is, so.
He needs to get a car.
Yes.
He's here.
Shane Smith and Sean Zaborowski.
All right, congratulations to all those recipients this evening for perfect attendance for the 22-23 school year. Now we move on to item G, tenure.
The following teachers have successfully completed their probationary period leading to tenure with Lakeview Public Schools. This evening, the Board of Education and Administration would like to recognize the following teachers. Please come forward if you are here this evening. Chelsea Adizewski, I know couldn't make it here this evening, but we congratulate her. Michelle Gerlach wasn't able to make it. Catherine Haar is here. Congratulations. Jessica Serkin.
Congratulations.
You have to pause for the picture too, because I see a photographer out here. There you go, that's how it should be. Melanie Trudeau Bilbrey. And Jeffrey Dezan, I always, it's because I'm thinking too much, Zadankowitz. Where did the rest of your fan club go? All those kids, oh, those kids.
hopes they're not a cold call, though.
I know, we love seeing your kids when they come. Congratulations to all of you.
All right, item H, the 2022-2023 audit presentation from Yo and Yo.
Jennifer Watkins is here from Yo and Yo, a representative, the lead on that team that came and visited us for a few days in August and a few days in June, and finalized the report in September, so here we are.
Thank you. You guys have this in front of you as well, the PowerPoint presentation.
That's what he gets paid the big bucks for. Good job.
Thank you. So last week we did go over with Finance Committee, the reports in much more detail than we're gonna go over tonight. This is just a kind of a high-level PowerPoint presentation. We went over the larger, the audit report, the single audit, and the governance letter. So this is a summary of everything together. A little bit about my background. I am on our service line education team. I'm the leader of that team. So I really enjoy school season. It's a little stressful these last 2 weeks, but our firm does about 87-ish schools in Michigan, and they're all due by November 1st. So I also sit on the 1022 committee and the referent group committee. I'm at the state level. So it's just one of my passions is education. So I love to audit schools, and your school is no exception because you'll see that you had a very clean audit and a good audit. Maybe. The next slide goes over your responsibilities, and we like to highlight this just because it kind of shows what an audit is. It goes over the district's responsibilities, really being those day-to-day operations, making sure the proper accounting is done, proper numbers are in your statements, that everything's, happening on a day-to-day basis, how it should be. And then that auditor is coming in to give an independent third-party look. We're not coming in to reconcile your statements. We need to be able to say if there's issues or if there's material misstatements. The next one is the audit procedures, and I'm not going to read all these to you. It's just a little bit of what happens in an audit. But I always highlight unpredictability because all firms do not do that, but we do. We try to switch something up every year. As I've stated before in the past, like Kathy has had many audits, and she's a CPA herself, so she knows what we're going to ask for. Probably 95% of it. So we always have to throw something in there every year that's a little bit different. We plan that during planning of what we're going to ask for each year, something different or look at something new. The next slide is your actual audit results. You did receive an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can give. You had no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, and no noncompliance noted over the financial statements. For the single audit, which is the audit over your federal dollars, you also received unmodified opinions. We audited 2 major programs, both the special education cluster, also known as IDEA, and the Education Stabilization Funds, or a lot of people say ESSER for those. Also, with your single audit, we had no material weaknesses, no significant deficiencies, or material noncompliance. So overall, with all that wording on this slide, it's a good, clean audit with no findings. The governance letter is a letter that you receive as the board with your audit. It's about 5 pages long and has a lot of information, but this is kind of the highlights of that information. We are required this year, it's kind of a new standard for auditing guidelines to notify you of the risks, which are at the top of the slide. Management override of controls, improper revenue recognition, implementation of a new accounting standard, which this year was the SPIDAs, subscription-based IT arrangements. And then we also did a risk over information technology controls. Other required communications that are in that letter are that we had no disagreements with management. We had no difficulties in performing the audit, such as like unable to get information or having trouble finishing up or something to that effect. We also had no uncorrected misstatements and no audit adjustments. I always highlight that no audit adjustments. That's very good as well. We have some schools that we're out there finding entries the entire time we're auditing. We're still finding entries 2 weeks before the due date. And so coming out, having everything reconciled where we're not finding changes and audit adjustments is very good, meaning that we got good information at the start of the audit. We had one management comment for net cash resources in the food service fund. And there's a paragraph discussing it in the management rep letter, but what that is non-compliance due to a USDA guideline that also the state has, meaning that you cannot have over 3 months of expenditures in your food service fund and your ending fund balance as of June 30th. I believe this was a comment last year, and it's kind of, I don't want to use the term pandemic, but with most school districts that I've been seeing lately, is an issue due to the increase of free lunch for all students. They increased the rebate or the reimbursement rate, and just supply chain issues and things of that nature. A lot of school districts have this as a comment this year. You just will be working with MDE to spend down that fund balance to less than 3 months.
You folks have heard me talk about excess fund balance many times. That's what she's referring to.
Okay.
And we still have to deal with it because we added more to the fund balance this year, so. But we keep spending too. So, it's a good problem.
The next 2 slides, I believe, yes. Next 2 slides are snippets directly from your audit. Just shows the balance sheet for your fund level statements with your total assets at $53.2 million, showing the different funds being general fund and 2022 bond fund as major, and then all other as non-major, and that non-major is like food service, student activities, debt funds, and such. Liabilities, your total liabilities at $13.1 million, and that's as of June 30th. 2023. The next slide is your snapshot of the fund balances as of June 30th. Again, 2023. Total fund balances for all funds at $40.1 million and bond fund at $23.5 million, all restricted for those bonds. projects, and then non-major is 6.4, which is all basically restricted or committed for those such purposes such as food service, student activities, debt, other capital projects and such, and then general fund ending at 10.1 million. The next slide is the revenues and expenditures, and then your overall increase or decrease to fund balance. General fund had an increase of 1.5 million. The bond fund was spent down by 12.3 million, and then all others increase of about 550,000. The next slide is a budget to actual with your original budget, final budget, and actual. This is only for general fund. The original budget budgeted for an increase to fund balance of 460,000. Final budget was an increase of 585,000, and your actual was an increase of 1.5 million. We went over the detail of this at finance as well, but you can see your differences. Both are well under 5%. And it's kind of a net difference between the two because most of the revenue difference is due to restricted grants, such as state restricted grants or federal grants, which are $1 out. You have to spend your dollar first and to get the dollar back, and they'll be carried over to the next year. The next couple pie charts are just to show overall kind of an idea of where both revenue sources and expenses on more of a pictured basis. Your state is about 80%, with local at 6%. Both of those together really make up your foundation allowance with some additional restricted state dollars. And then federal is up in the recent years at about 7%. Expenses showing that based on object, so this is only for general fund. You have salaries at 45%, employee benefits, which includes FICA, retirement, health at 37%. So you can see how much just the salaries and benefits take up with the green and the orange sections there. And then everything else together is about 18%. And a few trend analysis, just because this is my one time to do graphs for you, but this is the enrollment trend. You have from 2014 to 2023. 2023 ended with a slight increase from 2022 to 4,240 for enrollment. And the same, but for general fund balance, last 10 years from 2014 to 2023, ending general fund balance at 10.1 million for 2023, and 2014, 10 years ago, at 2.4 million, or 2.5 million, excuse me. A few percentages to show the board. These are the percentages that are most used by MDE, boards, school districts, MSBO. The fund balance is compared to unrestricted revenue. That is 22%, up slightly from prior year. Last year was 20.6%. And fund balance as a percentage of current operating expenditures is 17.5%, up slightly from prior year at 16.4%. Just a few notes. Overall, the audit went excellent. Obviously, we had no findings. Kathy and her team did a great job for us. Jordan's out here as my lead auditor, and he's one of my best, but he also loves this client because you guys are one of the best as well. So you guys did a great job. We have some future challenges on here. Obviously, we noted during finance, but a lot of the single audit is made up of all those federal grants, a lot of those ESSERs. Those have been huge in the recent years, and that federal funding obviously is not going to continue. As I said, we do many school districts in the state of Michigan, and they all have had an increase really to general fund in the last 2 years probably, because those grants were allowing them to supplant, basically meaning they could use general funds for those expenditures. So there's, that revenue won't continue. So a lot of that fund balance is due to those ESSER grants, and then just some inflation, supply chain issues, and food service fund balance, things to think of long-term. And as always, at the very end, they're always doing new standards. There's a few up and coming. We put 101 out here, but I think when I started, we were at 50, and now we're up to 101. I don't know, but they just keep adding more standards, which makes your guys' team in the business office work a little harder and makes these audited financial statements just a little bit more difficult every year.
I remember GASB 34. That
was
was
a
that wide, and that was, I'm feeling really old.
That one's still a pain.
That was only 20 years ago, we're all the way up to 101 already.
And that is all I had, but as I said, it was a good, clean audit, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions from the board?
Well, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thank you for coming out this evening and sharing your results. Appreciate it.
I mean, we do have Laura and Tony from the business office in the audience for, just to be here for the audit and support, and I think we ought to, give the business department and really our whole administrative and secretarial team who are following the procedures properly, accounting for things properly, having the right documentation, having the right receipts, and then the business office tracking that stuff and keeping them all true to the procedures and policy practices we have. So kudos to the whole office for, again, I said this at the city council meeting last night. I'm, proud to have been here for 15 years of those 25 to 30 years of clean audits for Lakeview. And this, the team is important in cleaning all up at the end, but something that goes on day to day is part of that. And they train secretaries to make sure they know what they're doing properly, and administrators to know how they're supposed to follow procedures and approve things electronically in different ways. So I think it's a big system, and it's appreciated that it's all coming through clean again. So just wanted to offer that.
Job well done. Thank you to you and your team. Appreciate it.
All of our team members are here, and it always comes to the board, and it looks like it's really easy. But for a $62 million budget and the millions of dollars of federal grants and things we had, the bond and all that stuff, it's not easy. But I have Laura Azzopardi, which she's been with me since I get long before me, that for that matter. And Tony's been with us and then left and came back, but they're a solid part of the team. You guys want to stand up? Guys and girls, I should say. And then we have Brian and Audrey, and they couldn't be here tonight, but these folks, they work hard, and as Jennifer mentioned, it's very unique that when the auditors show up, we have everything done. And I push them, but I'm here right with them in the evenings working, but that's always been my goal, because it's much easier to be ready for them when they show up than have to chase things down while they're here. So it seems like it's really easy because it always comes clean, but the reality is it's not, and the team has done a great job, and I wouldn't have been able to do it without them, and we make an awesome team, so they need to be recognized as well, so.
Okay. Oh, that's a separate one. All right, moving on to item I, future construction financial discussion.
So the Finance Subcommittee had this conversation last week, and we brought to their attention some information that the board's been provided over the last few weeks, I guess, probably the last month. I will go back to, late 2018, early 2019, when we were developing what our intentions were for this bond projects, and the assistance of Bart Mallow and Partners in Architecture in developing what those needs were in that bond treasury application that went to the State Department of Treasury in May of 2019, before the board was able to then vote to say we want to go to voters in November of 2019. Well, the dollar amount that was in that application was $65 million. Throughout the summer, as the board debated the, priorities and the projects and what they felt like the community would support, the number turned into $54 million. So as far back as 2019, we knew things that we would need to do were not going to get accomplished in the projections of what was in that Treasury application at the time. And so we had the, knowledge, I guess, to realize that this isn't the end of what is going to need to be financed in terms of big-term capital projects. Along the way, we've lived through COVID and supply chain problems and cost increases and labor cost increases, materials, and ended up with, modifications even from what was ultimately decided in, the fall of 19, spring of 20, had to make modifications to even the projects from there because cost of increases at, 20, 30, 40%. And as that kind of continued to evolve, we arrived at where we are now in the summer, where we've got the projects, the big priorities ended up being, we have to have the elementary set done and updated because middle school and high school had a lot of work done previously. So that's getting accomplished. And, kudos to the board for that prioritization process we did basically twice in the last 8 months or so to arrive where we are now, where we know the funds in the bond with the high school project that is an addition at the high school in the courtyard. That addition, along with the, tail end of Harmon and Greenwood's work and punch list at Ardmore and Princeton, and even Jefferson, a couple of minor things that's hanging out there. The nature of where we stand with respect to the bond funds is down to a small number. We have a multi-million dollars worth of technology infrastructure and equipment that's still to be part of what we intended to do. A little over $3 million of that. And we have a little under $2 million of construction money as our last go-around 2 weeks ago kind of set us up. So we know we have to prioritize, and then or we know we have to decide, if the board at least has to give us guidance, on what would be those next sets of projects. And in the summer, you sort of said, move forward, get bid documents created, get drawings, go out and get numbers that are real numbers, not estimates. You might remember that conversation. And at the time, we thought we had more bond funds to do that with. Well, in the end, we don't have that much bond fund to do the work with.
What happened?
So, well, I don't think anything happened other than the reconciliation of how the funding was portrayed was not taking into account $3 million worth of technology work, more than $3 million worth of technology work. Now, does all of those things have to happen in the next year? Not necessarily. So there may be some, some wiggle room about where we fund some of that tech project, because we have another deadline kind of looming with respect to the bond funds. We can't go more than 3 years, or we're going to start paying large amounts of arbitrage to the IRS on the interest we earn on the money we're holding.
It's called a yield restriction. It's not a rebate, there's two parts to it. So there's this thing with yield restriction that's resurrecting because we're starting to have 4 or 5% interest rates.
So higher interest rates basically mean you can't earn too much. You can't put this money aside, earn a bunch of extra money, and then use that money to go to projects. The IRS says, no, give us our cut. We had this back in the '01 bond for a little while, but, that was a very different time. So in the end, really where we're at is we have bids out on the street for the stadium, which is bleachers, turf, track. It also includes parking lot, East End parking lot. That works somewhere in the ballpark of $3 million in that range. There is auditorium work that needs to occur. We talked about lighting and sound in the auditorium being inadequate to run the programs we want to run in the way that they should be run. Very simplistically, if you turn on the lights at the stage front, you can't turn on the lights at the stage back. So if you're going to run a community music or a play and you want to backlight the backdrops, then you're not going to have lights in the front. That's not how you run a play. Yeah, you can get away with a band concert maybe with having them up front and chairs, but that's not long-term. So there's got to be work that's going to happen in the auditorium, and that's, we certainly think it's $1 million and then some, with all the emergency lighting that's not adequate now, the sound system, we have, 1960s can lights that are, you touch them and you burn your hand, right? The new systems are LED lights that can change color and, so to be relevant for rentals in the future, that lighting system and sound system needs to be updated. We've got new microphones and some other new things we picked up over the years, and obviously the seating was renovated and some AC was, was done, but there's work in the auditorium. And we have a pool. We have an HVA system in a pool that's 20 years old, and we have mechanical equipment in there that's more than 20 years old. Again, that's another $1 million+ of work that's got to occur at some point in the near future. When we discuss these things with the finance subcommittee members who are there, we were able to sort of get some guidance from them to say, these are really not options for us to consider. It really is something has to happen. How quickly? Maybe there's some options. You remember us talking about roof work and putting off roof work. So we would save roof work for the capital projects fund. Well, when we run into the arbitrage question, we sort of decided Princeton and Ardmore roofs, we're going to charge those to the bond because we've got to get that money out of the bank because we're going to pay the IRS. Why would we pay the IRS $50,000 or $60,000 if we charge those roofs? That's getting, work that needs to be done anyway, and it's high priority because those were problematic roof areas. So we got to, so that charged it down a little bit. So some of the, why were we so many million, now we're, down in the 2 million range? Well, part of that is we charged roofing that was going to be down the road because we knew we had to, we might as well do it while the work's happening at those buildings. We're going to mess the sites up and have fence and, restoration. We might as well do it while the work's happening because it was bad. Those two were bad roofs. The rest of our roofs might have 2 or 3 years or 4 years on them because we maintain them. You've heard that before too. So I think in the end, we sort of discussed this at the subcommittee level, and the nod was, we need to move forward. We have the current year, you just saw the audit, that didn't show in that presentation, but there's, close of year, June 30 was 2.5 million in capital projects. We have a transfer built in the current budget that you approved of 1.2 million. Based on what we now know, that number can be bigger. I certainly believe it could be 2 million again like it was last year. So in the current fiscal year, you'd basically be staring at a capital projects fund, separate from the bond, that's 4.5 million available to do projects like these. Knowing that, the finance subcommittee was like, we have a $3 million project about to be on, bid question of approval in November. We keep going. Correct me if I'm wrong for Genevieve and Pete who are there. And you obviously saw the financial status we're in. We have 10.1 million in the general fund. I think it's a legitimate, okay purpose to say if we really got into a pinch and we needed to take $1 million from the general fund to do something immediate because the pool problem or the auditorium problem, that's why you save money in these general fund and you save money in capital project funds, so you can use them. Now, long-term, is that solving every problem we have? No. We've been replacing AC compressors at classrooms for years because they're 20-some years old and they're not meant to last that long. Some of the electrical components and equipment today, it's not like it was 50 years ago. It doesn't last that long. So we're going to have those things continue on the general fund side of the costs that are William E. Walter bills you see coming through every month. But in our thoughts and looking at the immediate short-term future, there's funding there to cover some of these projects right now. There's probably more available, and we'll know that better in the months ahead. Next year's state budget, the current tax collections at the state level are still strong. Unemployment at 3.7%. income taxes are up, real estate transfer taxes are up. We don't see a big slowdown in this revenue that's been there for 2 years, which has given us record per pupil amounts the last 2 years. That's, aside from grant offsets, part of this fund balance growth and transfers to capital projects, which is also a different form of fund balance. Part of those are because we have 450 a student coming in and additional at-risk money and additional special ed money. And I don't even want to get into, can we cover 100,000 of this stuff with safety grant money? Because that's some of what we're doing. We got into more of that detail last week, but there's other little offsets that, aren't as relevant for this conversation, but they're out there, and we'll use those anywhere we can. So I think we just open the door for the question, that finance answered as affirmative. Keep moving forward to the rest of the board for any questions or comments about the projects. And we have our architect and our construction managers here as well.
Genevieve and Pete, is there anything you'd like to share based on your discussions?
Well, like I was saying, I want to keep going, like the part now that we're on is we're at the community part, like we have the community pool that people use in the community and, the football field, the field, football, soccer, everything, like the Green Hornets play there and the community auditorium, that is everything that people that we want to use, and let's finish this up, we're almost there, and let's update it while we still can. That's how I feel.
Well, we're at a point now where we're just getting quotes for all this. We haven't committed to anything, correct?
No, but your first question is going to be in front of you in November for the stadium, which is bleachers, track, turf, and the east side parking lot.
What would the timing be of that? Next summer?
April,
To
May.
start?
To start.
And when would it be done?
Yeah, end of August, no later than Labor Day. If I'm pushing, it's going to be no later than Labor Day, but by the end of August, so we can start playing our football and soccer games, because that's when we start playing.
Is that a promise?
I'm not assuring anything, but
Is that a promise?
The big lead time item, as I understand it, is the bleacher structure. And ordering early, like having this November approval and getting that order in place, we'll get that on site to the start of the season for construction. Because that happens first, then your turf and your track. And the paving of the east end parking lot won't be till significantly later, because we're gonna mostly finish at least the heavy equipment work on the wing in the courtyard.
Now, at the track field, you may recall when it was redone, when we sold the property to Beaumont, or whoever was before that, part of it was they were gonna put in a track for us and football field, and that turned out to be garbage. We had to gut everything and put in brand-new base all the way around the track, and it cost a chunk of money for that. Is this just a matter of replacing the surface, or is this the same story where they have to tear out all the base?
for the most part, I mean, we've got the under drainage, which was the big part of the previous, because we had to go down and put 4 feet of stone and drainage to send it out to the street, because everything drains down. That underlayment won't have to be touched very much. We also have what we call an E-layer, which is probably a 3-inch asphalt rubberized pad between the subsurface and the turf. So that might have to have some adjustments to it to level out. So it's really just, think about it as ripping up your carpet at home, keeping the padding down, and maybe putting some new padding in spot, and then putting the carpet on top. It's really kind of like that. There's not going to be the dig down, remove all the soil, put the cross-section of the stone and the drainage. So that part should be relatively easy.
We found all the basements under
Yeah.
there in 2008.
But it should be easier and hopefully quicker than what we experienced in '08 when we did it.
How about the electrical under the field? I know that's been a problem since it was installed.
Yeah,
and they have
we're not
run
going to have
extension.
electrical, we're not going to have plugs on the field.
No.
They just don't seem to work.
Okay.
Just because of the water that gets there, it drains down, it just corrodes everything inside. So we we will, there's conduits that we ran last time across the field, just empty conduits, and I think we know where those are. So if we have to run something, we'll have empty conduit to run to the press box if we need to.
Okay.
So we planned for empty conduits in case we ever needed to pull something from our concession building.
Any other comments? Genevieve?
Oh, is it possible to get some kind of update, like, and forgive me if I missed it along the way, of where we are and what's left? I mean, you gave us kind of a list, and then going forward to the next phase of what we kind of planned on and where we project we're going to be short. So that way we can kind of see a big picture of what's happened with the project.
We actually went through the detail of trying to know exactly where even what you might call change orders were hanging and not paid, but
Okay.
we know what that number is. One of those is on the agenda later.
Yep,
So we have a dollar figure for those, even though they're not in the final record keeping yet, but we've got that accommodated in that figure of what construction status is.
okay,
And like they said, the technology materials, we may have to make a choice to say we're going to spend some of the bond funds that would have been dedicated to technology because we're not going to buy those computers for a year or 2 years. We don't want to wait to the third year out where we're starting to pay the IRS. It's sort of like the roofing question from before. And so we'll have to know that we're going to commit general fund dollars to buy computers or a capital projects transfer for computer purchase in, say, 2025, if we use some of those funds up front on construction. Does that
Right.
make sense?
sure.
Because now we're in this situation where we're sort of, spending both pots for various reasons that are all legit, good reasons, but the timing of some of those things is part of this with respect to that. And the safety funds from the state, those have expended by next September. So certain things are going to happen with those if we're going to commit to anything related to these, and some of the things are related.
Right,
Emergency lighting in the auditorium could be done under safety funds. A PA system can be done under safety funds. Those are very legitimate purchases for those unique grants. Whether the timing of that choice fits with the time your construction is going on, and whether you can do it independently. So those are all the details we'd have to work out with our team. If the board says, yes, we need to move forward with these things and keep the ball moving forward. It doesn't mean you're making a vote, because in November, you're going to have those bids in front of you. Whatever that dollar amount is, we think it's about 3 million, but whatever that dollar amount is in November, we'll know now better. This is what it is. And then we'll have a better estimate of some things with the auditorium and some things with the pool. We've got some ballparks for them, because, it's when you're talking about a unit that's as big as the one at the pool, behind the pool, that's a long lead time. You might wait a year after you order that to get it on site, because it's custom and unique, and it's big, right? So those are things that come into play with our decision-making as well.
Okay, Ms. Taylor?
I was just going to acknowledge the fact that all these kids that come to our school and the teachers that work at our school, it's bigger than just an education. Education obviously is the forefront, but this is a community, and part of that community is the structure of the community, the schools, and they're looking at the school that they go to, the facilities that are there, the community involvement. And how many people were at the homecoming game?
I mean, we took in probably $85,000 or $9,000. What did we say? Almost 2,000 people, Carl and I figured, were at homecoming based on paying people. And then with passes and, if you're counting the band who's there, I mean, that's, a lot of people. And we can't safely sit 2,000 people in our facility right now.
And where does the band sit?
they sit on the track, so I'm having EnviroClean, they're rolling out chairs, 150 chairs to have our folks sit on the track, which puts extra wear and tear on the track, and so then it's extra work for our staff to bring them out, haul them in on every.
And that's the point I'm trying to make is Lakeview is, we are the center of St. Clair Shores. I mean, there's no doubt about it. Everybody from either end wants to be here. And it's a community, and the more we make it a community, the bigger and the better experience that everyone part of that community has that ability to, to be part of it, to be part of something, to be part of a memory. I'm not an alumni, but I know this guy over here is, and there's a couple more sitting up here that are, and just, how proud they are to be part of Lakeview. I know both my daughters are extremely proud to be Lakeview Huskies, and I think that, having these facilities, the auditorium, the pool, the track, the stadium, those are part of the school district, the part. And I think for us to hold back, we'll hold back the school system. So I think we really have to figure a way to move forward. And I think that we have a creative enough staff that will figure that out.
And I guess we think about the track, the stadium, the auditorium, the pool, we think of those as extracurricular, but those are teaching spaces too. Those are educational spaces, because when the weather's nice, the PE classes are out on that turf. There might be 3 PE classes out at one time out on the turf. They do a swim unit periodically throughout the year, and they rotate through who is in the pool for the several weeks that they're doing that. You walk through the auditorium, and they've got the kids are in there, and they've got different, the band and the choir, they're broken up, and they're doing things there. So it's not just for extracurriculars, it's also used during the school day as an educational and teaching space. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Robin, and for the comments made, so to help, I know you're a numbers person like me, and to help reassure some of your, I've been around, obviously, for both bonds, and so I'll speak a little bit about what Carl already spoke about with the different series. So as far as what we've had so far, up to bid pack 9, which includes the high school renovation that you're going to see some pieces of tonight, the bond funds, so when we started out, we were fortunate enough to get it passed before COVID hit. But since COVID, we have kind of an upside down where a lot of costs came in a lot higher than one would have expected, right? And you've been through all this. So we've had the different, Princeton Elementary were a good example. There were a lot of things that cost so much because of just what was going on in our economy. That being said, the bond itself, that list you're speaking of, we've been working closely with Bart and Mallow, and it's not been easy on either fronts. It's a lot, $54 million to kind of keep track of and make sure everything is, T's and crossed, I's are dotted. So, in answer to your question, Dan, like why things change, well, it is moving parts. Change orders, when they're approved, those add to costs, and if we have different overruns, things you can't expect. Basically, the bond itself is the way in our most recent numbers, it looks like, assuming technology happened as planned, there's potentially going to be about $1.7 million left in bond. In my experience, and I've been doing this for 23 years, I've been at different stages of bonds at either an auditor or to different districts. It's a good problem when a bond fund finishes out pretty good with $500,000, $800,000 left over, because that means that you're not having to cover from other sources. If you're a district that doesn't have a healthy fund balance, then that's problematic if who's going to cover the overruns. So we had a bad run with the cost of everything. But the positive side to all this is as we're running through the bond, we've also been structuring financially to position the district to have financing mechanisms. You folks have all been supportive, even before my time. Carl Tracy's been here. You've been having this capital projects fund as a means to cover future renovations and things. So we saw some of this coming just in nature of, we knew that these community things were, when the bond dollars, when everything was being negotiated, was coming in less, as Carl already spoke of. We knew those kinds of things. We were for planning. So the bond was running here. It was a little short than we had anticipated as far as the approval would go. But that's okay, because we've been also working on these different financing mechanisms. One is growing the capital projects fund. Our millage rate, we're positioned for it to be able to go to the voters. Again, to say, hey, we can keep your taxes levied, but guess what? We can get additional dollars. We also have installment loans coming. So to your point, Robin, the bond is really kind of spent. There's about 1.7 we hope is going to be there. Yay, if it's a little bit more. But at the end of the day, we've also been working different tracks for other finance mechanisms that we were even talking about when we were talking about the bond, 5 years ago. So there is that positive note that there are many opportunities, even with me not going to be here, and I know that's going to come up later, but there are many opportunities for there to be other funding mechanisms to seek everything that is going out in this bid pack 10 or that the district is looking at. So
Yeah, but in the summertime, we were told that it was about $5 million we had remaining. And now it's under 2, as you just noted. So that's the question I had as to why.
am I able
What
to?
happened?
Because they were referencing $3 million of technology money that is available. It's, in our opinion, it's committed to other things, not construction.
But it wasn't brought out at the time. They said they had $5
Correct.
million, so that was.
It was there is 5 million, but it's only 2 that's worth of construction, 3 with
But
technology.
again, we had our discussions about doing additional
Right.
things. We were basing it on the $5 million that was said we had available. So, okay.
Yeah, that's that pie up there that we had to have with certain folks.
Yep.
That was my drawing.
And I think the reality of it is, everybody would hope that maybe you can do a couple more years or a year or 2 out of some of these, facilities. But you're limping along with those facilities, right? They're not, a Class C stadium for Class A programs that are championship programs is not how you want your community to view your commitment, I guess, almost. Auditorium, it's the biggest facility in Macomb County. If it's got decent lighting and sound, we're gonna have all the dance troops. We're gonna have all the, extra want to, do presentations or whatnot. We would be able to rent facility and generate some revenue to offset some of these types of things. As it is now, if you can't stage light, then you're not gonna have those groups renting.
I do want to take 1 minute. Mike McKay's here. I've been working really closely in the business team, but for the most part, he and I have been really working closely, actually since 2022 when we issued Series 2, well, since he came on board, to really hash out the numbers. So I want to give him credit because it was him and I having a dialogue of like actually communicating with each other when it came to light some of the issues that we've been recently facing. So I do want to thank Mike McKay from Barton Mallow because it was really him and I putting our brains together and really figuring out that some of the information that maybe had been communicated previously was not represented in a manner that would have conveyed the proper information to Carl and to you folks. So I do want him to be recognized because he is a big part of why we are figuring it out, or we figured it out before it was all, spent, so.
Fair enough.
So,
My opinion is let's keep moving this thing forward.
All right, thank you.
Okay,
We will.
cool. Anybody else have anything else to share? Cool. All right, moving on to general AMA 2022-2023 audit report and financial statements.
representatives from the public accounting firm Yo and Yo have completed the independent audit of the district's fiscal year 2022-23 financial records. The Finance Subcommittee reviewed the financial statements and audit report at their meeting on October 12, 2023. Lakeview earned an unqualified or clean opinion, the best outcome available. Some highlights to the financial statements and audit for the 22-23 fiscal year includes The general fund closed the year with significant growth to fund balance of $1,586,135, primarily due to the district receiving ESSER 3 and 11T funding of $1.2 million that offset some district costs. The last round of $524,335 in child care relief stabilization funds that offset preschool and some latchkey costs, but also virtual school costs of about $100,000 covered by ESSER funds normally paid for by the general fund. About $400,000 is due to the expense line items such as salaries, athletics, and other supply costs not being fully utilized because of good fiscal practices and prudent spending. Overall, the general fund balance is strong with a balance of $10,149,489, or 16.5% of total revenue. I did want to note the auditors had a higher number, but they use unrestricted revenue. This is total revenue. So,
That was the 22, right?
yeah, they only use a part of the revenue. This is total district revenue, so that's why the percentage is lower. The 22-23 year included continued student supports and, I'll start over. The 22-23 year included continued student supports and safety initiatives such as interventions for learning loss and social and emotional student issues. Administration and staff were able to provide quality programs and support to students during these ever-changing times. Overall, more than 73% of spending was focused on classroom instruction and instruction-related support services. The Food Service Fund had an increase in fund balance of $88,386 to close the year with a fund balance of $816,488. The increase to the program was primarily due to receiving $190,000 supply chain and local food federal grant funds. All districts were also provided a higher reimbursement rate of 40 cents per meal. Increased costs to the program included salary and benefit costs due to filling open positions, $95,000 in capital outlay costs for new kitchen equipment, and increased food costs due to inflation and supply chain issues. The entire food service department was able to provide exceptional service to our students in spite of dealing with supply chain challenges and construction. I do want to note that the Food Service Fund did cover the Greenwood and Harmon kitchen equipment that would have otherwise been part of the bond. It ended up being covered by the food service program. The new 2022 bond fund had several projects take place this year, including active construction at Princeton, Ardmore, Greenwood, and Harmon, and several district technology projects. We are seeing continued higher material and labor costs, however, did not have as many project delays for our more recent projects at Greenwood and Harmon. These challenges, coupled with historically high inflation, is driving the cost to complete planned projects over budget by 20%. The fund closed the year with a balance of $23.6 million for remaining in-process high school and future planned bond projects. The 2020 bond fund included the completion of the middle school and other technology projects. The fund closed the year with a balance of $1.5 million to be used primarily for roofs and paying final balances for outstanding projects. The Capital Projects Fund covers district maintenance projects and also approximately $700,000 in Chromebook purchases. The increase to fund balance of $1,030,293 is a planned increase due to the $2 million transfer to capital projects from the general fund to cover future projects that there are not enough bond funds to cover. The debt funds closed the year with a fund balance of $1.2 million to satisfy future bond debt obligations. There were no findings for a single audit report that relates to Lakeview's administration of federal grants, which included ESSER 3, 11T, 98C learning loss, IDEA, ARP IDEA, school nutrition programs, Title I, Title II, and Perkins. Earlier this evening, Jennifer Watkins of Yo and Yo presented the audit report and financial statements to the Board of Education and is available to answer any questions. Well, she was, but. Therefore, at this time, administration recommends the board accept the 2022-23 financial statement, audit report, and supplemental information to the financial statements in a single audit report for federal awards as presented.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education accept the financial statements, audit report, and supplemental information to the financial statements and the single audit report for federal awards for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023, as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Taylor, support by Mr. Baird. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Again, job well done,
Thank you.
you and your team. Okay, moving on to personnel. Item A, at our places this evening is a revised personnel agenda item, changes in personnel.
Tonight, administration is bringing forward the following changes in personnel since the last presentation to the Board of Education on September 17th. New hires, Michelle Bush, Jefferson Middle School paraprofessional, Kelly Orozarski, Lakeview High School part-time cashier helper, after-school credit recovery teachers, Renee Mears, Shane Smith, secondary learning loss tutoring teachers as listed, on-site virtual school content area secondary teacher mentors as listed, virtual school mentor Julie Myers, resignations Michael Roan, Lakeview Public Schools technology specialist, Ashley Pearson, Jefferson Middle School special education teacher, Sarah Maroney, JMS special education teacher, Catherine Conan, Lakeview Public Schools executive director of business services, Angela Kwitowski, Jefferson Middle School special education teacher, Schedule B returning coach and sponsor as listed.
Mr. President, I would like to recommend that the Lakeview Board of Education approve the changes in personnel as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Martin, support by Mr. Miners. Discussion on the motion.
Just that Ms. Coleman will be deeply missed when she leaves us in December.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna miss all of you guys as well. So it's bittersweet for me, for sure.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to bond implementation, bid pack number 9 renovations and addition to Lakeview High School, contractor bid amount correction.
Tonight, administration is bringing forward a correction to the award of contractors for bid package number 9 related to renovations and addition at Lakeview High School, which was approved at the May 2nd Board of Education meeting. At the May 2nd board meeting, the cover sheet for bid package number 9 from Barton Mallow had a typo listing the contract amount for Otis Elevator at $137,200. The correct contract amount should have reflected $139,900. While the contract amount for Otis Elevator was inaccurate in the letter, the overall bid award for bid package 9 was correct and will not change based on this action. And representatives from Barton Mallow are here tonight to answer any questions the board may have.
Could we motion on this?
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve corrected contract amount to Otis Elevator in the amount of $139,900 for renovations and additions to Lakeview High School as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Taylor, support by Ms. Martin. Questions on the motion? Mr. Miskelly.
With the construction and hearing Sean talk about all the people that work homecoming and come to the football games, come for our events, going into the winter season with basketball, we need a sign to kind of alleviate some of the anger that comes from opposing teams when there's no parking. If we put a sign up, there's signs at 13 Mile for both their projects. If we put a sign up, it might alleviate a little bit of the issues that the people that work outside hard to get spots and get officials parked and buses parked, so they know when they come here, hey, I need to park the auditorium lot because we're doing renovations here. We need a sign, we need something to let everybody know that we're doing, we're spending bond dollars.
I think we can definitely do that.
Okay.
Get something put up with. Yeah, not a problem.
Those poor people at parking, John can attest to it, they are.
Yeah, they get called some awful
they're
names
called
during
some
football
awful names
games.
Just for a simple parking spot for a football game on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Just your friends. They're just your friends.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Item B, bid pack number 9, change order, Lakeview High School site work.
This evening, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve a change order related to site work at Lakeview High School. Administration brings change orders to the board for consideration that exceed $20,000. During preparation of the site for the addition at Lakeview High School, the soils were found to be inadequate due to appropriately support the new structure that was proposed. This hidden condition was discovered while preparing the site for installation of the foundations. Homes formerly located on Cedar Road prior to the high school being constructed were not properly removed, and debris from those buildings was scattered throughout the area under the surface. Administration worked with Barton Mallow Builders, Partners in Architecture, and Testing Engineers and Consultants, TEC, to determine the most cost-effective and acceptable solution for the project. TEC proposed an initial solution that would not require removal of large amounts of soils. However, when a proof roll for load testing was done after the TEC recommendation, the soils did not meet the minimum standards to support the building. The team determined additional undercutting and installation of a larger base of support material was necessary. Administration directed Barton Mallow to solicit quotes for the undercutting and installation of appropriate soils from multiple site work contractors who are currently under contract within the district, and pricing was competitive. Ultimately, Cordis Brothers, the site work contractor for bid package 9, provided the lowest price for this work. Barton Mallow monitors this work as being completed and requires the contractor to provide truck tickets in order to track the amount of materials removed and brought in and compare it to the pricing submitted. Therefore, administration recommends approval of the following change order to undercut the soils at LHS for the following: Cordis Brothers not to exceed $119,000. And Barton Mallow Builders are still here to answer any questions you have.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the change order and a contract increase to Cordis Brothers Trucking and Excavating, Inc. in the amount not exceed $119,000 for an additional undercutting and the increased cross-section of material as presented.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Taylor, support by Mr. Asha. Question, is this being covered under the contingency money that should be set aside for these kinds of things for the bond, or is just coming out of general?
It's on the line item.
Yeah.
Contingency.
Now, then I have a question regarding the contingency piece. Is that money set aside for these kinds of things, or is that still being counted as being the $1.7 million that you say is available?
That's part of that, so that number.
Contingency is part of that.
1.7 is broken into categories, and so there's some leftover monies in, so basically, it's the owner cost things, there's not much building money left.
Okay.
But that contingency is baked into their number, so if memory serves me, I'm picturing that grid, there's about, 500,000 that we think is gonna be additional furniture that hasn't happened yet or been committed. There's the technology stuff that we already know it's situated. The other line item is the contingency, and I think where it's at, it's under 400,000, but this has already been factored as part of that. Then and Carl's been in these, where we've already talked, okay, we've already dug up stuff, so they're not expecting bigger tickets, but this and the tank and Harmon, those are parts of it, and then there's a few other things that you guys know about of change orders. So there is earmarked money for contingency, but if there's any huge surprises, then, above what we've got, which isn't much, that's in there as part of that 1.7, so.
But I guess your question was really, each project has a contingency amount assumed as part of that budget when you prove it. And so there is, this dollar amount is inside of that work that was scheduled for the high school site. We've also assumed we're going to see something in the change order land when we try to hook the elevator to the second floor of the building. That is a spot where we're going to have some kind of change orders, hopefully not big ones, but we're assuming some of those things within this conversation that's already set aside, not part of what we're saying is available.
Okay.
No, the 1.7, it is what it is. Their
Okay.
construction line, it is what it is. And it's just a tiny piece that's construction for any project, anything that's going forward, because we've used our total proceeds as the number. So the 1.7 is what it is.
Okay.
And any contingency we baked in, I think it's like 400,000. You did 386, I think. And then it factored, but there was some notes on what made it up. So there's not much left for any other surprises.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions?
I just want to share that this number, when we first started to look at this undercut, was about 190,000. And when Mike and I were talking about, okay, that's a lot of money, his suggestion was, we've got 2 other site work contractors that are still doing work. I'm going to have them come in and look at it. And started beating up a little bit of these pricing to get it down to this 119. So, you know,
Thank you.
it's the Barton Mallow type of, hey, we're thinking outside the box because we know you guys need to save some money on this, because it's just, we have to take the soils out. It's not something you're ever going to see, but we're going to have to spend this money to do it. So, and it's probably going to be in the 110 range we talked about today. It's going to be lower than that.
Yeah, that's correct. So that 119 number was for a 27-inch cut. Once we did we had TDC on site when we were doing this work. Once we did do the final proof roll, we were only at 24 inches. So we saved money on about 3 inches of soil going out.
Okay, cool. Good news. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Move on to other, request for closed session, readmission hearing, prior district discipline, 2023/2024 DK.
Mr. President, I move that the Board of Education approve the request for closed session to consider the readmission hearing prior discipline for student 2023-24 DK.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Bear, support by Ms. Martin. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Bear?
Aye.
Ms. Martin? Aye. Mr. Miners?
Aye.
Mr. Asha?
Yes.
Ms. Taylor? Aye. Mr. Muskelly?
Aye.
And Mr. Dubrowski?
Aye. Okay. It is now 8:53. We're going to go into a recess and we'll reconvene at 9 o'clock. And at that point, I'd like to have the board, the family involved in this, and Mr. Paulson, whoever else he deems appropriate from the administration, to be in here for closed session starting at 9 p.m. And also, action, if any, will not be on the internet tonight because we're going to shut that down. If you want to see any results here, you'll need to come into the boardroom here for the results when we return to open session after the hearing is complete. Thank you. See you at 9.